Hi, everybody. My name is Koji Fusa. I am professor of Cyber Security Innovation Center of Aston University. Aston University is co-hosting this event with the Pediatrics Department, Oxford, and GVE, where I am a CEO. So let me explain first, for those people who attended 𝗳𝗲𝗶𝗃𝗁𝗃𝗁𝗃 session, I hope that you understand the importance of digitalization of healthcare. And important thing, as Professor Hollander mentioned, is the security. So we at GVE, we have developed a key system. So you don't have to move the information around, which is a breach of GDPR, the European Union's very high, strict standard, which is targeting, people are saying that this is targeting for GAFA, but I think that this is a natural development of digitalization. So what I'm going to talk about is a digitalization of fiat currency, and some people call it central bank digital currency, but central bank digital currency is a very confusing word because it has a central bank, but digitalization of fiat currency actually needed the digitalization of a private sector, banking sector. So let me explain the reason why we have been dragged into this situation, or why we think this is going to digitalization of fiat currency is very important. As you know that money is only recognized by human beings. No other animals can recognize, say, paper as something which is going to be as valuable as money. And the money has been developed over many, many years. And the initial shape was like nice stones or silk or something which can be stored. And it can be changed to gold, silver, copper, and now paper, mostly paper. And about 30% of money has been using cash transaction, but the rest is now being either card or digital money. But the cost for money supply, money circulation settlement is mainly still cash. Because if you think about a country with a lot of islands, every day that the boats is going to carrying the cash, and over 100,000 cash carrying cars are running around every day, which is not environmental friendly. So why don't we just use, let's say, a smartphone, which now nearly 100% of the people in the world is having it. So we have been thinking about what is going to happen if we are going to use only a smartphone and cloud to replace the cash. So that was a thesis. The impact from this exercise is staggering. Basically, that if you think about Nigeria, which is the largest country in Africa, the current cost of maintaining the cash payment is $10 billion every year. But if you put 800 million initial investment and no more investment, then you can save about $7 billion every year. So every year, you can save between 6 billion to 7 billion every year for Nigeria. If you think about Africa total, the 58 billion is being spent every year to support the cash and the card society. But then you can save 40 billion every year. This is huge amount of money for Africa or any country. And what we think is going to develop for the future is this. First, we are going to introduce any of 54 African countries for fiat currency platform, which requires the highest security. But once you have established higher security platform, you can use for other purposes. You can use for cross-border payment and eventually the healthcare. Healthcare sector is, as 𝗳𝗲𝗶𝗃𝗁𝗃 mentioned, is going to be huge, stressed by the public sector spending, not only US, Japan, or Switzerland. Healthy Switzerland is also now, because of the longevity of the people, but because people live longer with a not healthy condition. So what we need to do is that we need a digital medical record system to be in favor for making people live longer, healthier, longer life, not just live longer. So that's our purpose. And one of the report by McKinsey 2019 explains that the current cost for the year 2023, next year, that world is going to spend $2.7 trillion for 2 trillion transactions. So each transaction is going to cost $1.35. That's a sort of calculation, which is staggering. Or think about it. If you are going to do a small payment, and if you are thinking about it, the current infrastructure is going to cost the world for $1.35. It's a huge, but in fact, that is what has been spending all the way. However, if we are going to get rid of the cash and replace by digitalization, that itself is going to have the cost. And one of the things which confuse the people is that people are talking about digitalization of fiat currency of 1 tier or 2 tier, but in fact, the world is 3 tier. The only central bank is only supplying only 7% of what people call M2, broad money supply, and the others are basically has been provided most of the unbalance is being supplied by private sector banks. So even private sector bank have, let's say, $10 billion, they can lend to $10 trillion. So that's the leverage which private sector banks has been supplying. So what we needed to make sure that the world is going to have a more interoperable system. So year 2020, October, there was a G20 meeting in Riyadh, which he pointed out ISO IEC 20022, which has been drafted by ex-SWIFT guys, has been there for many, many years, but that's not enough to ensure the interoperability of the systems. So we created out of ECMA International of ISO 24643, which has been announced on November 2022, just after G20 meeting, saying that ISO 20022 is not enough. So this is going to ensure, this international standard is going to ensure what kind of security you are going to need it in order to have to be interoperable with other systems. So you may have heard that Estonia, which is one of the most advanced digitalized country, has been hacked by 4 times by probably Russians. Russian denies, so we never know whether it is Russians or somebody else. But Estonia's system, even the 2 first prime minister was very, very keen to develop digitalization. They forgot about security side of the implementation. So therefore that it has been hacked 4 times. In Albania, which is one of the most advanced digitalized country in Balkan countries, they have been attacked by DOS attack recently, and their website has been down for many, many days. So the security is very important. Security, when I say security, there's 3 components, and the people talk about hardware, software, and which was more important. But in fact, hardware, software, both are important, as well as operation. So hardware, software, operation as 3 things together is going to achieve the highest security. If the operation is weak, then even hardware and software is very good, that there is a security hole. And that's what this international standard, which is going to be created to have an international standard to have an interoperability among those systems, which is online 24 days and 24 hours for 365 days. One. The key is this dotted line is inside of cloud or computer, and outside access object is something like a smartphone or iPad or these kind of things, or computer. So computer or iPad or a smartphone is going to access to the cloud computer. The first things which need to do is that if the person who is approaching, let's say for your electronic medical record, if it is my record, it is really me who is approaching, or is that somebody else who is pretending to me? So process one has to be authentication of who is going to be the joining, who is approaching. And this is a sort of the must be needed. But until now, that people didn't require this because initial internet has been developed with World Wide Web concept developed by Berners-Lee, who has been saying that anybody can upload and can download. So it is open to anybody. But if you have a secure system, it cannot be open to anybody. You need to know who is inside of the system, who can be allowed to the system. So it's totally opposite of the development of internet so far. And this is what is needed. And the process 3 to process n-1 is basically whatever your service is going to get. So it's just like App Store. App Store application is between process 3 to process n-1. And process 1 in the smartphone, you are going to check by either your password or your face recognition or some voice or something like that. So the same thing should apply for interoperability of a more complex computer system. But the idea is the same as smartphone. So this is going to be, this is already announced by ISO on the November 23rd of 2020. And this should be the future of the interoperability of the future. So until now, the people didn't realize that the high user friendliness and the cost and the security, these are compatible. So for the low payment, low amount payment, it was less secure. And for high value payment, the security was higher, but then it took a long time. So it wasn't compatible. But if you think about this new international ISO, if you put everything inside of the computer, not in the smartphone, smartphone is going to be used only for the recognition of the person, whether the person is going to be accessing the data is the actual authorized person. If you do this way, then you can put all sorts of different functions in it. And you can actually, with a simple function together, it can make a very complex and a secure system. And this is what we did. Until now, every country, those systems which central bank is going to be, has been using, for example, Euronet in the European country, and the card company which has been used, let's say Visa and MasterCard, it was different. And the bank has their own system. So it is always, these three systems is what central bank is using and the bank using and the credit card company using are different. And so this is 3-tier. So current discussion of tier 1, which is going to central bank is going to issue the money directly to the consumer. That was already, people recognize this is nonsense. But at the same time, the tier 2 model, 2-tier model, which only central bank and the banks can issue the money, that is also not suitable for the world. So Federal Reserve Board questionnaire, 22 questions published on the January this year, they pointed out it's actually the world is 3-tier. The central bank, banks, and non-bank financial institutions. So this is what we have in mind from the beginning. And what we created was one system which can be used, central bank, because it's so secure, but also it can be used for credit card companies or non-banks or DeFi companies, because it is so user-friendly and it's so fast. As a consequence, what happened is until now, because the 3 different systems has been coexisted. This is a case for Japan. Japanese vendor is charging 63 yen per transaction for bank cross-border cross bank transaction from bank A to bank B. But even in our case, even we can reduce to 1 yen per transaction, we can still make money because whole system is straight through processing and no human being is going to be involved. This is even more staggering if you compare it with SWIFT. So SWIFT case is international transaction. So in our case, we need to have two banks, one bank in one country and another bank in the other country. But two banks is incorporated, adopted our system. Then the cross-border transaction, if it is in dollars, can be reduced from $30 to 3 cents per transaction. So it's a magnitude of 1,000 times more efficient. So that can be done by this way. By the way, this three-tier model has been using the same system and create a more complex system, has been patented in the US, in Japan, and Singapore already patent established. So this is a sort of the new level of infrastructure. So it's not road or power or anything like that, but it's for money-wise. This central bank digital currency or fiat currency digitalization can be the huge driver for economic growth in Africa and any other countries. So I'll stop here. If anybody has any questions, please put into the chat box, please. I'm going to answer any questions. Okay, well, I think that I'll continue then. The problem also, I talked about the problem of cash. Cash requires 100,000 or 100,000 cash carrying car, which is very pollutive. So that's a big problem for cash, and the cash is most costly to any means of money now. So what is the problem of card? The card system, which has been used security, called public key infrastructure, this is no longer to be used after quantum computers are being developed. So quantum computers has been developed mostly, most advanced one is IBM and Google. And if what they say is true, 2025 or 2026, the current public key infrastructure cannot be used because the public key infrastructure assumes that the computer cannot guess their keys. But quantum computers are very good at guessing the algorithm or patterns of keys, and therefore that the current key system is not going to be used. This has been pointed by national NIST, the American National Institute for Security and Technology, 2016, and they have been asking people to submit what can be more difficult algorithm to not be hacked by even quantum computers. But this is a catch-22. What we have done is we have at least patented in Japan is that we have been distributing 8 billion people with 300 million companies, different keys and a different set of keys. And this is nothing to do with each other. Therefore, that if you can want to have your digitalization, let's say 100 digital services, each person, 8 billion people can have 100 keys, and then you can use different keys for different services. I think this is going to be the future. And because each key has no relationship, even the quantum computer cannot start the cracking what should be do to try to find Koji Fusa's 100 keys. It's impossible. So that's a sort of new dimension to be compatible for the quantum computer days. And if this can be done, then as I mentioned, the magnitude of speed of transaction performance is going to be at least going to be 100 times. Therefore, that the cost of transaction can be reduced to 100 times. Any questions? So let me explain more. Typically, most people think that IoT, I'm sure that people have heard about 5G and IoT. They are thinking the same kind of future, which is it's online for all your devices, electric devices. So 100 more devices can be online for 24 hours for 365 days. And the people assumes this needs 100 times of power, energy, but that's not actually true. What is going to happen is that in our case, is it happened the opposite. In the fiat currency digitalization, some parts like card company has been digitalized, but because they have been dealing with offline payments, so they have to store the data more than one places. They have been stored more than 3 servers, and sometimes in one of our clients' case that they have served 440 different servers using to transact 100 million transactions per day. In our case, because it is only online all the time, you can use only 3 servers and transact 280 million transactions per day. So the magnitude is more than 100 times. So this is a powerful online. What it means to online for 24 hours and 365 days. If people understand physics and the people understand the mathematics, then you can calculate and you can actually reduce the power consumption rather than some parts are offline. And we are utilizing that theory into practice. So from our perspective, my partner is the person who has developed the first mobile payment in Japan 2004. So it was in Japan in 2004. And he is one of the first person, or he was the first person who created the near field communication for Hong Kong's octopus in 1997. So digitalization of current fiat has been mainly started from 1997, contactless card in Hong Kong. And he has been using the same operation system to create a mobile payment 2004. And Vodafone was in the discussion with his initiative of 2004. And immediately they copied his concept and they rolled it out in Kenya. And in Kenya, as everybody probably knows, that there is only cash is using for tipping. Everything else is being paid by M-Pesa, operated by Vodafone. So what we have been envisaged for another 53 countries in Africa is that they are going to develop similar things like M-Pesa, and digitalization is going to take place, and the cost for cash carrying is going to be minimal, and the whole nation is going to be benefit from digitalization of fiat currency. And if you do the fiat currency digitalization, you can record all transactions, which means money laundering and any other illegal activity is going to be more difficult than using cash. Cash is for criminals, is going to be the future, and any transaction which are to be a legitimate purposes can be done with digital money. That's what we believe is going to happen. I think I have too much time to be left. Another 30 minutes to go. Anybody, any questions? Oh, good. So from Yuki, how about public keys or private keys or crypto wallets or transactions? Okay, let me explain this one using this. So this is very good question. So I'm going to explain with the slides. So the current cryptocurrency and the card company, they are using public key infrastructure. So secret key, everybody is going to give them the secret key. So Yuki has her own key, and Ken has his own key, and I have my own key. So credit card company like Visa, MasterCard, and let's say other, let's say cryptocurrency has their public key, which is public, so people can see. So I am going to create my new public key, which is going to be created by my secret key times, let's say, Visa public key. So in this case, that the assumption is public key cannot, using public key, cannot guess what is my secret key. And it used to be the case if you are using the normal computer or what people call supercomputer, not quantum computer, then it takes ages so that the transaction has already taken place or the transaction has been already completed. Therefore, that you don't have to worry about it. And the way that it has been used is if I use my secret key to encrypt, then the person who has a public key, for example, in the case for this one is a Visa card, they can have their public key, my new public key they use, and they say what I have been sent. So here is hello, but if I say I'm going to spend £150 to Marks and Spencer's in the UK, then they are going to see and they are going to make effect that transfer. The same thing can be applied by using public key for Visa, saying that they complete the transaction, they send a message to me, encrypted, and I can decrypt by my secret key. So public key, this is different by different people, but public key with secret key, this public key has been created by announced public key, and these two combinations can be done nicely until now. However, the quantum computer is so good at going around all the sort of possibility and find my created public key with Visa can be easily analyzed by quantum computer, and my secret key is going to be revealed by those hackers who is using the quantum computer. So that's why that NIST is saying that from year 2024 onwards, that the public key infrastructure cannot be used, and they have been asking people to submit the new algorithm. In our case, it's totally different. It's a what we call Copernicus kind of thinking. So people are talking about the world. It's basically they try to develop public key infrastructure, but public key infrastructure development and quantum computer development is catch-22. So we say, why don't we create a system which is going to give, let's say, 1 million keys to 8 billion people? That's what you have done. And each key, we are going to use a random numbers. Therefore, that nobody can guess, even the quantum computer takes ages to analyze what is my key, my secret key with, let's say, Yuki. So Yuki and I have one secret key. I and Ken has one secret key. Ken and Yuki has one secret key. So if you have 8 billion people having 8 billion divided by 2, then that's a sort of the number you needed to have each peer-to-peer secret key to the world, and then you have a safe system. And that's what we have done. And we don't really need everybody has an 8 billion key, because you need a separate key for each digital service. So, for example, the current digitalization of public sector is about 40. So if we create 100 keys and give it to 8 billion people, 200 keys, probably that's enough. But if thinking about future, our default style is we are going to give 250 keys to each 8 billion people. And if any of the country, including 54 countries of Africa, want to use our system, we have already developed a system, and the system is up and running from June this year. With a non-disclosure agreement, we are going to happy to release it out to any country. And you are going to have a next level of security compared with the public key infrastructure. So to answer to Yuki's question, the credit card companies, digital wallet, these are the usual talk of its extension of public key infrastructure. And as long as they are using public key infrastructure, it's not going to be the limitation against hackers using quantum computers. I hope that's clear. So question from Ken, it is very clear and simple math that the digital currency transaction has benefit compared with the current paper cash. So what is the real barrier to penetrate these systems and platform in the market? How it makes faster make this happen? Okay, so as I said, that digitalization means that you can keep the all record, right? So one of the country, this is a true story, a few years ago, we went to meet with the central bank people. And the central bank people said, well, they love it, but it is not going to pass their parliament because the politicians are taking bribes with cash. So they don't want any sort of reason to support the digitalization of currency. The digitalization part of the currency may make sense, but it takes about 10 years or maybe 20 years to digital the whole currency. So that's basically the main message, right? So if you are in the corrupt country, then it is very difficult to make it happen. But there are some countries which people may think that they are corrupt, but the politicians are forward thinking and they want to digitalize fiat currency. So we are going to go to these countries first. And if these countries are successful digitalization of whole nation, starting from fiat currency and then healthcare and other sector, then I think that the world is going to follow. There are other, obviously, other problems. For example, when 𝗱𝗶𝗴𝗁 said that paper money works, most people say, no, they only coins work. So there is some kind of resistance. But a few years later, if the paper money works, then everybody is going to jump into. And the credit card company, the same. When the people are initially, the people were afraid of credit card, plastic card, just no spending limit, and you can go bankrupt. All these kind of rumors, but nowadays that it's hardly anybody who don't have a credit card in the what 𝗳𝗲𝗶𝗃𝗁𝗃 mentioned that global north. You have, let's say, at least 10 cards, plastic cards in your wallet. So it's going to takes time, but at the end of the day, if it is user-friendly and if it's secure, there's 5 elements. It's a fast payment and convenience and low cost and secure. And what is the last one? I can't remember the last one, but 5 elements is going to determine whether people are going to use. And if you have the system infrastructure, which has 5 elements, the people are going to eventually, after 10 years, 20 years, you are going to win. From my brother, Estonian CBDC was hacked because, no, Estonia doesn't have CBDC. Estonian system, Estonia is using the euro, I think. So they don't have their own currency. But Estonia, if you Google Estonian hack by Russians, there's 4 incidents, they say. The biggest one is about 700,000 people. So about half of the people's private data has been hacked about 10 years ago. And Estonia has sued French company who supply the chips because everybody, expert was saying that that chip was a bit weak in terms of security, and it was. What they did do after that, what they are trying to, each time, they are trying to recover from the hacking, and they have so far has been done. But you never know how much money has been stolen or how much private data has been hacked, right? So I think that some people have heard about dark internet site. In the dark internet site, you will see if you put your name in there, then some of your password is there because there are so many now passwords, and some of passwords are very easy to figure out. And in the hackers are playing around with some looking at some of your private photograph or video. So be careful. You're welcome. Any more questions? Professor Feiger, do you have any questions? Fuya-san, do you have any questions? Okay, so the fourth person's is just when let's say a smartphone is approaching your system, this is either inside of cloud or inside of hard computer. Initial process is authentication of who is actually approaching. So if in the George's bank account, if I pretend to be George, the current system, our system has an authentication mechanism to not allow me to approach George's account. So that's sort of must have it. So the new international standards, the one, unlike the current card system, is that initially when you approach, then you are going to immediately know whether you are authorized person. So in order to do this, of course, your KYC has been conducted somewhere, and it's probably a mixture of, let's say, 12,000 bank institutions all over the world. Some of them are not having good KYC, in which case you can exclude these set of KYC, and you can create a new what we call white database. So the authentication process can be done with those people who have done one way or another for KYC or somewhere. And somewhere, in our view, is usually can be done with these banks. Banks KYC is probably the best at the moment, although the credit card companies KYC has become much better. So Fuya-san's widespread question: if CBDC becomes widespread, what will be the response in the event of disaster? Okay, well, this is exactly the reason why a country is thinking about importing or implementing CBDC. If you know that exactly what kind of contract, what kind of disaster the Lehman or what kind of Lehman has in real time, how much liability, if Lehman collapse, how much liability is going to be borne by whom? At that moment, because they are offline payment, that it takes ages to find out how fast you can, how much money you need to put it in. So eventually, the US government put 10 times more than Lehman's balance sheet to the system. So that is a problem. This is because there is an offline element. If you do online, then immediately you can see what kind of haircut is needed to do the first level, second level, third level, and you don't really should need to put more than 1 times of Lehman's balance sheet. That's the theory. So if disaster is going to be avoided, if or less likely in the event of CBDC is going to be implemented. But you have to do all the digitalization, otherwise you cannot calculate or you cannot foresee. Keiya's question: what would happen to monetary policy, fiscal policy after CBDC gets introduced? Will it become more and less? It should be more effective because policymaker has the data at hand in real time, whereas at the moment there is a delay, and so therefore that the case for Lehman is a good one, that because they cannot predict what is going to be the domino effect. But domino effect you can calculate if you have a real-time data, and you can get the first people can have a 50% cut hit, or maybe 80% hit, and the second person is going to be 50% hit, or third person is going to be hit by 10% or something like that. You can make more monetary policy or fiscal policy a much effective and much immediate impact in the society. So digitalization is very important, and digitalization of fiat currency is very, very good. The problem is the central bank doesn't share data. You're right. Yes, they don't even share the data of how much they are paying for example, their interbank system. You're right. So I think Professor 𝗲𝗏 is absolutely right. Professor 𝗲𝗏 used to be the head of financial group for McKinsey, and also he was a board director of SBC and UBS. So he knows exactly what he's talking about. Okay, so I think this is my session. So I'm going to end now. I hope that you enjoyed my presentation, and I can be reachable either through Aston or GVE, and I'll be available to answer any more questions if those people who watch this video. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dan.